Hi. It's been a while since I've made a video. Um, Originally I was gonna make a lot of update videos on, you know, heartbreak, but I I figured that I didn't really need to do it because ultimately I've moved on and yeah carried life as beforehand. But today I wanted to talk about something different. I wanted to talk about things that I've learned over the past 2, 3 months or so. It's gonna be a really different topic, but over the past 2, 3 months, I've assumed a new position within my boat club. I'm over as the acting men's captain, and it's been quite a journey. It's been quite a stressful journey, and there have been ups, there have been mostly downs, but along the way I've learned a lot of things, and I've taken a lot away from this experience. And sort of the reason why I'm making this video, it's not about justification of my actions or me trying to comfort myself, because how I see it, there's no way of being comfortable with any decisions I make and any decisions I consider, because at the end of the day, everything I do be hard to it will be based on hard decisions. Everything I've considered is took a lot of thinking and a lot of stressing about, honestly, to sort of come to a conclusion. It's because it's hard to be in this position and having to navigate so much political side of things, a lot of club politics and a lot of sort of relations. It's having to manage a lot of those, having to find a balance, and having to really navigate through this uncertainty. I think comparing it to last year, and I think this where I stand, I'm the club, especially where my squad is, in a lot more of a shaky position. It's in a position where I have a lot less control over what I can do and what I can control, because people come and leave, people have their say in things, people have their own opinions, and people have their own ideas of what may be good for a club, a crew arrangement, a boat. Everyone has their different opinions, and it's hard to sort of try to acknowledge all those opinions and all those ideas, yet trying to navigate through your own beliefs of what may be good based upon your experiences, right? And it's what I've had to do these past 3 months, trying to decide whether to listen to what people have to say or listen to my own gut and my own experiences. And I think that's one of the most important lessons I've had to do, is to be able to differentiate whether to listen to people or whether to listen to yourself. Another thing I've more recently experienced was having to make hard decisions and making to learning to know what whether to do something because it is right, whether it's because it's the right thing to do, whether because it's more convenient for you to do so. And I've had to make a very difficult decision. Um, I'm not going to go into uh, I'm not going to go into specifics here, but I've had to make a difficult decision to ultimately take someone out of my boat and make a last minute decision to put someone else in it, because I needed to set a standard. I needed to draw a line in the sand and tell people this is not how you act. And it was a hard decision because the person trained with us a lot, and ultimately the dynamic of the boat will be shifted a bit. But ultimately, I know it's a important thing. It's an important action to do in order to set the record straight with people and sort of let people know I, how I expect my athletes to behave or to act in a certain manner, and not in an authoritarian sense, but more in a to set the standard of what the ideal athlete should be, what we strive to be respectful individuals who above all else are very respectable, honorable, and with dignity, very uh, whatever the adjective is, with dignity. Um, and it's a decision I still think about from time to time, but I know because this person who I've taken out has done bad things, and I know I even though that person has had a lot of time and has developed a bond with people of my boat, I ultimately adhere to prioritizing the safety of my athletes and of my friends and members over one person. And it's a decision I've had to make and something I don't regret, despite the chagrin of some people probably, but well, I don't know. And yeah, speaking of the chagrin of some people, I've had to make some very difficult decisions over putting people in certain crews, and I've had to do very unconventional actions that people don't typically see, that people won't normally support because it is new, it is unheard of, or it is just not ideal. Um, and I that's this is the one where I'm most at conflict with is whether I know I'm doing the right thing, because at the end of the day, I think there's no avoiding it, but there's something always deep in yourself that you're always going to question your ability as a leader, as someone in a position of power, whether the choices you make are ultimately the right choices, and currently that's happening now for me. I don't know whether the choices I make are going to be the right ones, whether I'm going to finish this season thinking I've made the right choice, or I should have listened to what my athletes say to me. I ultimately I believe that my choices are mine to make, that I decide what gets to happen, right? And some people may not like it, and I know that's the case, and I know I would definitely prefer a different outcome have I do if I had the flexibility, the resources, and the sort of the opportunity to. I really would, but I've been pulling at strings these past few months, and like like I'm at my wits end with how I can approach this. Currently, I'm in probably the most stable position, in terms of crews and sort of how I'm gonna train, but there's just still some part of me which thinks things could be better and things could be could be changed and everyone would be happy. But I think that comes into one of the most important lessons. I know I said that earlier, but this one I think one of the most important lessons I've learned while doing this, being in this position, that no matter what I do, I'm definitely not, I can't make everyone happy. Um, I can't possibly make everyone love my decisions, make everyone accept it. There will always be bound to be one person who, is like, oh, Ryan's choices are garbage, or he made the wrong decision, or he made a bad choice. You know, and I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that sometimes my choices might not always be the best, and might not always benefit everyone. But I think that's in a very ironic sense, the beauty of being a captain or being a leader in any case and scenario. That's just how it is, to make a decision knowing that people will not be happy, but ultimately, if it's a decision that you believe it's best, I think you should follow it. Follow your heart and not follow the voices of others. Well, of course, follow the voices of others if they do have a very valid point, and if they use reason and you don't. But I don't know. It's just things are complex at the moment. I think I'm in a very complex stage of my life just because I've had to question myself so many times recently. It's entering states of crisis, of stress, anxiety, panic, breaking down. I've gone through all of those this past week, but I've come to this like sort of final stage of thinking, yeah, it's a hard journey, and it's gonna be very hard still. And will be moments where I will want to just cry and you know sit down and be alone for a while. But along the way, I realized through these moments, through weathering the storm, you know, I come out a better person, and I come out learning how to be a better leader. And I think that's one of the most valuable things you can take away from experiences like these, to be able to pick up the pieces where someone has left off, to be able to say, I'm gonna take this job even though I know the journey ahead will be hard. I think that in itself is a bold show of character, and ultimately I think, you know, just jumping into the abyss is never an easy thing, and that's exactly what I did. And I think I have to accept the potential consequences of it. There will be consequences, I know, and I've accepted that this year has been an abyss, and I found myself lost so many times before. But I think going through this abyss again, facing it in the way I am now, I think it's been a very valuable lesson. I've gotten so much from it, and I just I just want things to be better, and I just want I just want to finish this year knowing the choices I've made, the decisions I've had to make, that they're ultimately choices that I wasn't pushed to do, and rather that they're choices that I've accepted, and I can say in the future, looking back, I don't regret those decisions at all. Even though if it didn't benefit people in the short run, I know in the long run things, and in hindsight, that these choices I make in has had a positive effect on not just me, but the people I work with and the people I'm friends with and have connections with. Because short run pleasure is one thing, but long term pleasure and joy and sort of benefits, they outweigh everything. Because when you're later on in life, you can look back and be like, yeah, it sucked back then, but it's paved the way for the person I am now. And I think that's the most important thing, and I think that's how I carry myself in my leadership. To know that it will suck now, but later, then it could be probably one of the best decisions of my life, or I could come to regret it. I honestly could come to regret the choices I make this year, and that's fine, because they're also learning experiences for me in the future. But yeah, I hope by me saying all this, I hope to alleviate some of the weight for myself, because it has been genuinely one of the most stressful weeks of my life. But also, I hope to those who might see this, and to those who might be in my position of leadership, where they find themselves stuck in a rock and a hard place, that it's not all doom and gloom at the moment. At the moment, maybe, right? But it does get better. It does get better, and I think as long as you keep your chin up, as long as you look up into stars and not down on the ground, 6 feet under, things do become better, and ultimately you become a better leader through these storms. And it is through these storms and through these constant battles that you become a better leader, and that's how it's always been in history and in time memorial. And yeah, it's just, that's life. Life is about the hard choices, and if you aren't living with hard choices in your life, then what's life worth living for, anyways? But yeah, that said, I have nothing else to say really. I just, yeah, being a leader is hard, but it's a worth experience. And for me, no matter how far I go with this, no matter where I end up, you know, I can look back in this experience as being a acting captain, and next year as the club captain, I can look back and say these are the most memorable years of my life, because I've had to make tough decisions. I've had to make people mad. I've had to stand my own ground and say, look, these are my choices. Deal with it. And I think that for me is definitely a very valuable lesson. To not be a pushover, to not be a people pleaser, but to be a leader and to lead with confidence and strength and honor and all those other morally good words. But yeah, that said, I basically, this video is done. Just go post it. Just gonna send it out, and if you see this video, you know who you are, and yeah, just tell me what you think, and yeah, take care.